Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. What's going on, folks? What's up, y'all? How's it going? Welcome to our Saturday live guided practice session here on YouTube. You're on the Open Studio YouTube channel. Come on in, folks. Excuse me. Still getting over a bit of an illness, but I'm feeling great and I'm ready to get to work. Actually, as I was sick this week, I got a lot of practicing in because I didn't have much else going on except for not feeling great. So that was nice, actually. Get to your instrument. This session is for all instruments. We're going to be doing the worst possible exercise you could do, which is scale running. It's the worst, except for it is one of the most useful things you could do. It's the best. While we are waiting for the room to fill up, please put in the chat where you are practicing from in the world. I am in beautiful St. Louis, Missouri. Where are you at? Let me know where you are. We got Bob from Chicago. Morning, Javi. Devin, England is in the house. Chayla's in the house. Thank you, Chayla. Feeling better, just still a little stuffy. Ontario, Canada is in the house. What's up, Louie? What's up, Colleen? Good to see you. We've got, what's up? Vidinvit. Probably not saying that even close. Apologies if I'm not close on your name. Bethany, what's up? Chris, what's up? Max, what's up in Ohio? Alaska's in the house. Oh, here you all are. Brooklyn's in the house, always. Parsippany, New Jersey's in the house. Reno, Nevada, beautiful place. Tokyo is in the house, beautiful place. You're up late. Scotland's in the house. Hamburg, Germany is in the house. Connecticut is in the house. Pittsburgh is in the house. Brazil is in the house. What's up, Fabio? Boston, Tucson, Mississippi, Delaware. What's up? Bozeman, Montana. What's going on, Bozeman? My wife and I have been watching Yellowstone for the first time. Beautiful show up there. Kind of crazy show, but beautiful. What's up, Dayton? Funktown in the house. What's up, Stasia? Kyrgyzstan in the house. West Hartford, Connecticut. Quebec, Canada. Uruguay is in the house. Rhode Island's in the house. Middletown, New Jersey's in the house. Indy, Buenos Aires, New York, New York. More Japan, Mexico City. France is in the house. France is in the house. What's up? You're very welcome, Ethan. I love making these videos. Cologne is in the house. China's in the house. Texas is in the house. Garden City, Strong Island is in the house. That's Wendy. Netherlands is in the house. Australia's in the house. Bogan, Australia. Wait a minute. Dakar's in the house. Senegal. They know what they know the Senegalese. They know what they're doing with their music over there. They got it happening. Some great music. Buffalo, New York, the Netherlands. Britain's always representing. Ohio's always representing. Columbia, South Carolina. We got Nice. We got Naperville. Oh, we got St. Louis always representing STL. That's where I am as well. Alex from Delaware. Oh, nice. Alex recently joined Open Studio. Liked it very much. If you want to join Open Studio, there is a link in the description here where you can start your free trial. There's a free 14-day trial. So you can check it out. There's no risk. You can cancel anytime. But if you just want to see what all the courses are, you can definitely check that out. Tel Aviv is in the house. Motown is in the house. Detroit, France, New Mexico, Tacoma. Antarctica's back. What's up, Wazo Kasami? Antarctica is in the house. Cordoba. We got 30 seconds or so, y'all. Raleigh, North Carolina. Brussels, Belgium. Yeah. Cool. Well, we got a nice big group. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Let's do this thing. Pyric Pig, I'm using M-Audio Hammer 88 with the Spectronics Keyscape sounds. Dublin's in the house. Come on through, everybody. All right, let's get to it. let's get to it. So, welcome everybody to today's guided practice session. We love doing these live on YouTube. This, by the way, will stay up on YouTube fully intact after the session's over. So if you want to come back and watch the replay, please do. Now, to do that, you're going to want to subscribe so that you can find us easily. And you're going to want to like this video so that you can find this video easily. So while you're waiting for this class to start, which we're starting in a few moments, why don't you take the time, just smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't subscribed to Open Studio. If you haven't subscribed to Open Studio, it's not just these live sessions. There's a ton of stuff happening here on this YouTube channel that is pretty amazing. In fact, tomorrow morning, there's an incredible interview with Peter Martin and Christian McBride dropping that is absolutely mind-blowing. I was lucky enough to be in the room when they were recording that conversation. It is just incredible. So you're going to want to do that. Also spread the word as we're live here today, because we're going to be practicing live. This is a guided practice session for all instruments. This session is. You don't have to be just a pianist or just a guitarist for this. You can play anything as long as you can make some melodies. We're going to be practicing a very cool thing. We're going to be practicing, as a matter of fact, scale running. Now, scale running is the worst. It's one of the most annoying, terrible, horrible ways to practice you could ever imagine, except for it's one of the more useful things that we can do to help with our improvisation. This is an improvisational practice session. We're not going to be just practicing scales, which we'll talk about in a minute. It's not what this is about. This is about something much deeper to help us understand what we can play over any kind of various chord progressions or songs. So this is for all instruments. This is going to be a melodic guided practice session. So that's that. Again, you want to make sure to, if you don't mind, like and subscribe. And also there is a PDF for this. You can grab that PDF. That's also in the description. So if you want to start your 14-day free trial with Open Studio, you can find that in the description always. You might as well. It's free, 14 days. Cancel anytime. And if you want to get that PDF, you can get that to follow along with what we're doing. But we will have music on screen for you. Okay. So scale running. What is it? How do we practice it? Why do we practice it? Why is it terrible? Why is it? If it's terrible, why are we doing it? Well, it's terrible because it's kind of, I say it's terrible. It's so helpful. It's just very annoying because it's a constant stream of eighth notes. I'll tell you what it's not, though. It is not about just practicing scales. We're not going to be just practicing our major scales in all 12 keys in all the various ways. There's nothing wrong with practicing your scales. That's not what this session is about. And that's not what these are for. This is not a technique exercise. This is a functional musical theory exercise where we're learning how to map out a tune and pick a group of notes for a specific time in a tune. That's what it is. So let's talk about that. So how do we create a tonal map, which is really what scale running is? We're practicing a tonal map. So if you think about a chart, right, with a standard, today we're using On Green Dolphin Street as our standard. It's actually a map, right? We're kind of working with time and space, and we're putting certain notes in certain places. So how do we map that out? Well, step one is we choose our scales. So I'm going to show you how we can choose the scales that are going to sound good. Now, this becomes an artistic choice. There's no right or wrong answer when you're choosing a scale for a particular stretch of time, right? There are certainly conventions, and we'll talk about the most basic conventions, and then we'll talk about maybe some more interesting, colorful choices that we can make. But there's no wrong answers here. Choosing our scale is our artistic decision. And in fact, when you hear people say things like playing out or playing in, those are people making artistic decisions about what is the group of notes, what is the tonal color palette that they're choosing over a given amount of time. That's how improvisational musicians think. Then we're going to practice linking the scales together. This is where it gets annoying. We run our fingers as if we're continuously typing on the keyboard, but we link the choices that we've made together. So as we'll see, we'll choose on Green Dolphin Street, like a C major scale into a C minor scale. And we're going to link those continuously without stopping. So we're going to practice like a continuous eighth note over the entire changes to On Green Dolphin Street. Once we've linked our scales together, we're going to start adding intervals. So when we're linking scales, we're just linking seconds, essentially, major and minor seconds, as if you're playing a scale. We're going to start to broaden our horizon, and we're going to start to add things like thirds, like fourths, like fifths, like triads, like broken seventh chords, right? Like arpeggios, all kinds of different intervals, sticking with our tonal map, right? So sticking with the scales that we've chosen. And once we've done that, we can start adding rhythm by subtracting. So remember, we're playing here, we're going to be practicing in a continuous eighth note for most of this session. And the way that we can start adding rhythm is actually by subtracting eighth notes and adding in rests, adding in space. This eventually turns into, once you've added intervals, once you've added rests, and then you can start adding things, you know, like approach notes and things like that. And chromatic approaches, once you've added that kind of stuff, all of a sudden, you're just soloing. You're just playing an improvised solo. So this is almost like a magic trick. If you have a hard time understanding how improvisers put together their melodies and how they improvise on the spot, this is kind of the roadmap for that, right? We'll break down how an improviser thinks. We choose our scales. We're going to practice linking them together so that there's no gaps. We're going to start adding intervals like thirds, fifths, triads, broken sevenths, and we're going to start adding rhythm by subtracting all of those notes, all of those continuous eighth notes. So that's what we got. How about that? How about that? You ready to go? Let's do it. So let's start with choosing our scales. So like I said, we're going to be doing On Green Dolphin Street in the key of C. We're going to start with just the first two bars, the first four bars, which are just two chords. So the first four bars of On Green Dolphin Street are two bars of C major. There we go. 2 bars of C major and 2 bars of C minor. So here's where we're going to make our first decision. This is the first 4 bars of the chord changes to On Green Dolphin Street. We're going to make our decision about what to play based on some very simple criteria. We really just want to have some common notes. We want to make it feel like it's relatively in the same key for this first section especially, because this is all over like a C pedal. So we're going to be just choosing our notes wisely here and going very basic. So for our C major, we're going to go, huge surprise, the C Ionian. So we're not going to run this just like we're practicing a scale. These 7 notes that we have here, this is our tonal color map, right? These are the 7 notes that we have to choose from in these 2 bars. Remember, we're just hanging sound in time. So in this time, in those 2 bars, we're going to play these 7 notes. We're going to start by just playing them in a scale continuously, but then we're going to start opening it up. The next 2 bars, that C minor 7, we're going to choose the C Dorian. Now you could choose a number of different minor scales here, but for a C minor 7 in this case, I think the Dorian is the best bet. If you listen to the Miles Davis version of this, you'll hear a lot of Dorian on that C minor. You'll hear some other things too, by the way. But like I said, that's our artistic choice. I'm going to make the most basic one in my book for this particular tune, which is that Dorian. But this is how we start choosing the tonal color palette. So when we're playing this tune, if I were to play this, I'm going to put the metronome here on beats 2 and 4. So right, just those first 4 bars, those first 2 chords, that's my tonal color. I'm literally just making up rhythms using those 7 notes for the first 2 bars, the C major scale, and those 7 notes for that second 2 bars. That's all it is. Like, in essence, that's all we're doing. We choose our scale, and then we play themes with those 7 notes, right? So let's look at the next 2 bars. See if I can't grab it. Here we go. Look at this. Okay, so the next 4 bars, the next 4 bars, right, we have our D over C, which we're going to call like a D7. This is all over a C pedal, right, the first 4 bars. But we're not going to worry about the pedal for now. We're just going to worry about the chords. So we've got a D7, D dominant 7. We're going to use a D mixolydian. So that 5th mode of G7 is just a D dominant scale, basic D dominant scale. For the D flat major 7, we're going to use a sharp 11. We're going to use a Lydian. Now we're going to choose the Lydian over the major scale because it has that G natural. It has that raised 4th, which is a common tone with C. It doesn't clash with the melody. So it keeps us really locked into the key of C. So I love this as our basic choice. And then we're back to our C Ionian. So again, if I were to play this, I'm just going to use my color palette here. I'm going to pick random, for me, I'm just going to practice picking random intervals. So like 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? I only kept with the notes that are in my sonic color palette. I've been practicing this for 35 years probably, this way of going about it. So I'm really quick at changing the scale when the chord changes. This is what we're doing. We're changing our choice of notes when that chord changes. And we do this by choosing beforehand. We kind of know what we're going to do. When you get really good at this, you can make choices on the fly. So instead of the Mixolydian on the D7, I could use a Lydian dominant because I know how to do that really fast. I could use an altered. Instead of the D-flat Lydian, I could do a ton of different things that I love. I could do a sus. I could do a Mixolydian with a sus. I could do I could do an altered on that. I could make that a dominant 7 and do whatever I want because I'm skilled at picking my color map and then playing through it, right? Then that just takes repetition. So here's the first 8 bars of On Green Dolphin Street. Now let's look at what the next 4 bars look like. We have just a basic 2-5-1 in the key of C, right? It's a 2-5-1 because this is the second, this is the 5th, and this is the 1 in the key of C. We are going to go very basic here at first. We're going to do a different version of this by the end, but at first we're going to go very basic. So D, we're going to do the Dorian. That's a mode of C major. G, we're going to do the Mixolydian. That's a mode of C major, and for C, the Ionian. Now notice all 3 of these are just notes of the C major scale. So it's just all white keys. All of this, the whole thing. Like I said, we're going to start very simply. We're going to do some cool things with that G7 when we get deeper into this, but we're just going to start with this as our sonic color palette. And then if we look at the next 4 bars, which is a 2-5 and E flat, we do the same thing, right? So F Dorian, B flat Mixolydian, and E flat Ionian. Those 3 are just all of the notes of the E flat major scale. So we're doing a 2-5 in the key of E flat, right? This is how we're going to choose to stay very simple. Now this, even though this is simple, I don't want you to get mixed up that this is like for beginners, because even advanced pros will use something of very simple color palette for a big 2-5-1 because it sounds great, right? We can really create tension within that 2-5-1 just with the same 7 notes the whole time. And then we've got a little G Mixolydian on the way back. Now again, we're not playing these as scales. We have to write them as scales because you have to write them horizontally somewhat, but these are just our color palette. Imagine it's almost like, and this sounds crass, but it's almost like this is paint by numbers, right? Where so the Ionian is a 1 and the Dorian is a 2, and then, you know what I mean? So like, that's what we put in on the C major chord, the C Ionian. And you could choose different. Maybe it's 1.5 or 1.8 or whatever, different shades, but this is how we choose what we're going to do, at least when we start. By the way, I just want to caveat this too. Some people don't do it like this. This is not done how everybody does it. In fact, some people don't like this and they do it a different way. That's all good. We're basically getting to the same thing in different ways. I like, especially for beginners, thinking about it like this because you can see it so clearly, the differences between the chords and what your options are. And then you can just focus on what is the most important bit, which is rhythm. So for this practice session, we're kind of taking rhythm out of it for most of it, just to kind of get the notes under our fingers. So what does actual scale running look like? We've chosen our notes, right? That's the first step. Well, now we have to link everything together. And that looks something more like this. So I wrote a little example. We're going to do, normally we would improvise, and we're going to improvise on this in just a minute, but I wanted to show you what this would look like at a very basic version. I'm going to just play this, by the way, without, again, I'm not thinking about rhythm. I'm mapping out my tonal color palette, my tonal map here. So I'm just going to go very slowly and straight eighth notes and play it as written. I encourage you, if you are a good reader, to just play this with me. We're going to go nice and slow. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And so we've got our Ionian. You can change direction at any time. The first rule, though, is that you have to stay within a second, a major second or a minor second. And you have to switch the scale when the chord changes. Should be a D flat there. Apologies. So notice the eighth note is continuous. We're always a step away. This is all just white keys here. You can make whatever patterns you want. Sorry, there's some weird inharmonics going on in here. Apologies. Right? So this is super, super easy to see how this works. So again, just mapping it out, right? Linking it up. See if you can do it without stopping and being like, oh, now we're on C Dorian. Try that again. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and... And I'm just playing a root in my left hand. Because you can hear the chord in the scale, right? You can hear when the notes changes. This is the color palette. You almost don't even need a voicing to hear what's happening. So weird. I swear I checked all the inharmonics. I don't know how they reverted. Notice I've made little patterns here. You can change direction whenever you want. In fact, we're going to work on that a little bit later in this. But notice that we are, again, the rule is you have to be stepwise. You have to stay stepwise when we start. You have to keep a continuous eighth note. It can't stop. And you have to link between. That's the key. So whenever you hear great improvisers, and it just seems like, well, how are they flowing so easily from one tonality to the next? It's work like this, very slow work to help connect these things. Okay, we're going to go back to our choosing scales, right? So here's all of our options. Again, we're not playing this as written. These are just our options. And let's try improvising our line, right? So again, here are the rules. You have to stay stepwise. You have to do a continuous eighth note. You have to change the scale to what we've chosen here, this basic version, when the chord changes, right? And that's about it. And then you could change direction whenever you want. So if you want to continue just a straight up and down, it's a good challenge to see if you can change the scale all the way up. It sounds really good too, but you're just practicing again, changing that tonal color palette. Or if you want to stay within an octave, it's also a good challenge. C to C here. You stay within a fourth and just change. You know, there's all kinds of things you can do. You can get very broad. Let's try it. Let's try it. Dot, 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 dot. Here's the eighth note. Dot, dot. Let's see if you can do it. Improvise your scale running line. Do not stop the eighth note. Stepwise only. Change direction when you want and link the scales together. 2, 3, and 4, and. C Dorian, D7, D flat Lydian, sharp 11, to the Ionian. D Dorian, how'd you do? Take just a second. I'll lower the metronome a little bit. Metronome volume a little bit better here. Okay. Let's try it again. One more time. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And C Dorian. I'm just playing these roots for you. Not even going to try to make a bass line or anything. Just create your 8th note. Do one more time here. One more time. You got it. See if you can change up the geography. Go really low, go really high. Try to stretch yourself out, but link these up. Change that scale. C Dorian. That D mixolydian. D flat Lydian. Dorian. Now these are all just white keys here as we start our beginner version of this. Basic, but very powerful. You can create good melodies. F Dorian. These are all just the key of E flat here. Isn't that great? What a simple but very beautiful, very annoying exercise, because it just never stops. When we start to speed this up a little bit, you know, if you are a more advanced player, see if you can take it up to tempo. We'll get to that in just a minute. So that is our basic version of these chords. Now I want to show you what we can do to add a little bit more color to things. So here are the same changes, but we're going to add some more color to our scale choices. The first 5 chords are exactly the same. We've got C Ionian, we've got C Dorian, we've got D mixolydian, D flat Lydian, and C Ionian, right? So those haven't changed. We're going to add, though, a 5 chord before the 2. So we're going to do a little secondary dominant before the D minor 7. We're going to do an A7 altered. I love doing altered chords and altered scales before minor tonics. So we're going here to we're tonicizing that D minor 7 by playing this A7 altered. Now notice the altered scale is the B flat melodic minor scale starting on A. It's an easy way to think about it. It's B flat melodic minor ascending, starting on A. So A, B flat, C, C sharp, E flat, F, G, and A. And then that takes us to our D Dorian. Now notice our G7, we're going to do a G7 flat 9. For this, we're going to use the G half whole. Half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step. This adds so much more tension than just all the white keys for 4 bars, right? And then our C Ionian on our major. The major chords, the tonics, those always, I love them to stay grounded. You can do things like Lydian or any number of things to make them spacey or feel less secure. But I love a secure landing spot. Sue me, I like to feel safe. From there, we're going to tonicize our F minor 7. How do we tonicize our F minor 7? We put a secondary dominant before it. In this case, this C7 altered. And again, I love using an altered scale going to a minor chord. So this altered It's like the 7th mode of D flat melodic minor ascending. And that takes us to our F minor. It sounds just beautiful. So this has really changed. If we look at this like last half of this, there's so much more tension now. We've got our B flat half whole. Right? Great scale here. Easy way to think about these half wholes is thinking about them descending. 4 notes of B flat dominant, 4 notes of the tritone sub E dominant, E7. 4 notes of B flat 7, 4 notes of E7. It takes you to E flat 7. Right? And then on our G7 on the way back, we've got another half whole. Right? So if I were to do this, it would look like this. Here's our practice, right? So it's this very similar thing here where we're still going to keep our rules together here. So we are going to keep our 8th note intact. Super important. Keep our 8th note intact. We're going to keep our stepwise motion. We're going to change the scale when the chord changes to our prescribed scale. So now we have our altered scales. We've got our half whole diminished scales, right? We're really ratcheting up the tension here. But I just want to point out here, these are the artistic decisions. So if I'm playing on Green Dolphin Street, I could just go very straightforward here. And, you know, on our 2/5s, just do all diatonic, right? Mixolydian on the dominant chords, and it's all white keys for that. Or I could really ratchet up tension by doing like the half whole and then adding a C altered heading into our... These are my choices. This doesn't have to be prescribed all the time by some kind of lead sheet or anything like that. This can be something that's done in the moment when you're soloing and ratcheting up tension. So we're practicing making some artistic choices here as well. Let's try this. Again, if you're a good reader, let's just try reading it with 8th notes. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And changing direction whenever we feel like it. There's no rules about that. I'm just making little themes here. So here's our C Dorian, D Mixolydian, D flat Lydian, right up the scale, C Ionian, connecting the dots, A altered, D Dorian, G half whole diminished, C Ionian, C altered. Isn't that juicy? F Dorian, B half whole diminished, E flat Ionian, the E flat major. Again, this really helps you to understand, like, if you want to learn about the half whole diminished, do this scale running exercise where you have to hit it. Let's go slow. I'm going to slow down this metronome even more. By the way, we do not have to do this fast, and you should not do this fast. Even if you're an advanced player, taking your time and really working this in a way that you understand that tonal map is the most important part. This isn't about technique. This isn't about chops. This is about understanding your note choices, you know, and being able to really hit them wherever you are so that you can do whatever you want, which we're going to find here in a minute. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and... Here's our C minor, the Dorian sound. Our D dominant, D Mixolydian sound. D flat Lydian. The Ionian. Our altered. Half whole diminished. What's great about this exercise too is just like when you're improvising in real life, it forces you to improvise your fingering as well, right? Especially when you're improvising these scale running exercises. Like you could plot out some fingering for this, but when you're improvising these, it really forces you to get some functional improvised fingering together, because it doesn't work perfectly all the time. You got to kind of be able to know, okay, I got to put my fourth finger on this B flat because I'm going to want to go all the way down. Okay, let's go back and look at our scale choices, and let's try improvising on these new colorful changes, right? With the tension ratcheted up. Let's try improvising. We are going to stick with our basic rules, and we're about to change these. So this will be the last time we do the basic version. So pay attention, because it's going to get super tricky here in just a minute. I'm going to take the tempo up to 58. So let's do eighth notes, continuous eighth notes. And again, this is not to be played as written. These are just our note choices. We're going to do continuous eighth notes. Here's our metronome. We can change direction wherever we want. We have to stay stepwise, though. That's a big rule for this first time. And we change that scale when the chord changes. Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and... You got it. There's our Dorian. D mixolydian here. D flat Lydian. Come get your altered. There's our D Dorian. G7 flat 9, half whole. You got it. C7 altered. Let's have another go around. Have another go around. From the top. C Ionian, 2 bars. If this is too fast for you too, you could also do quarter notes. There is no shame in going slow at all. In fact, it's more useful. The more you can link these up, the more useful it is. Get your altered. Isn't that wonderful? Okay, now let's start taking this up to the next level, right? So what we want to do now is we're going to break one of our rules. And we're going to start eroding the rules that we've created all together. This is where your afternoon goes from good to great. So let's erode the rule that we have to stay stepwise. So right now, we have to keep a continuous eighth note. That rule is still intact. We have to switch scales when the chord switches. That rule is still intact. We can change directions at will. That rule is still intact. But we can now use whatever intervals we want. We can use thirds. We can use fourths. We can use fifths. We can use triads. We can use broken seventh chords. We can use whatever we want, and we can change direction wherever we want. So we still have to keep the color palette going, right? It's still the paint by numbers, where it's like, these are our 7 notes or our 8 notes that we have to choose from. Can we now skip around and make some interesting stuff happen? You would be surprised at how hard this is to make sound good when you first try it. So let's try it. I'll give you the same tempo here. Any interval is on the table. Let's try it. Let's try one time through. 1, 2, 3, and eighth notes. Continuous. Dorian. Half whole. Don't miss that half whole. Here's your C7 altered. You can make so many cool choices here. There's so much good stuff to do. Have another go. Any interval you like. Okay, so that I have to resolve. I can't not resolve it. It's a little bit more difficult, yeah, to keep the continuous eighth note going. I mean, it's fun. You can do it, but to make it sound good is difficult. Okay, now for a magic trick. You ready for a magic trick? We're going to erode one more rule here. The last rule that we're going to erode, actually. We still have to continue to change the scale when the chord changes to what we've already prescribed, right? We've done the homework. We've prescribed. We've chosen some good sounding scales. So we're going to keep that. We can change direction whenever we want. We can keep that. We can play any interval. We can now keep that. And now we're going to erode the rule of a continuous eighth note. So now we can add rest to the situation. And you could start very simple by just adding a few rests. But I want to show you what this leads to. So I'm going to do just my version of this, right? Where now there's no continuous eighth note. I can play any interval I want. All I have to do is keep the sonic color palette. Listen to what I can do here. I can do any rhythm I want. You know what I mean? I'm basically just blowing at this point. Like I'm just able to create melodies. Gets you step by step to that. You keep that color palette intact. You keep the idea of linking things together, but you take off some of the rules, some of those laws that we applied about the continuous eighth note and the intervals, and all of a sudden, you're messing around with the harmonic color palette with your sense of rhythmic vocabulary. Now, this opens up another can of worms because you do have to develop a rhythmic vocabulary and a sense of thematic composition. Those are all things that are a lifetime of work. So don't feel like that's like, oh, now I got it. But this is how you know what to do. How do you know the good sounding notes you can choose from? I encourage you to give it a try. Let's do it. 2 courses. 2, 3, and. Let's do one more time. Have fun. Just play. There it is, folks. There is your tonal color map. It is 100% beautiful. It is incredible to work on. So this is, if you've ever gotten stuck where you like have to think about what are the notes I should be playing here? What are the changes? What am I doing? This is the work you need to do. This is your homework, is to figure out, and maybe, you know, we didn't touch on sort of like that second half of the tune of On Green Dolphin Street with the little, that walk down. You might consider finishing the tune and what would go there, right? Like get competent at being able to pick what logically would go there. It's not hard. You can look up any of this stuff. We've done videos on what goes where, but it's really fairly simple in the end. But it takes work to map it out. And that's what we're doing. We are mapping it out here with the scale running. It's the worst. It's horrible. It's so annoying. Never stops. And it's the best. It makes us sound really good. That is it for me. But I will take some questions here in the chat. Thank you, everybody, for the practicing. By the way, we're working on this over on Open Studio Pro. So if you want to sign up for Open Studio Pro, we'll be doing this on Monday, too, on a few different tunes. So make sure to come in for that. That starts Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's a live class over on Zoom. Nice, Simon. Nice, Bethany. That did help. That's what it's supposed to. If you're in the place, this isn't, you know, for everybody. If you more advanced player, you've probably done this work already. It's always good to refresh. I still work on this on stuff like rhythm changes. Like if I were to practice a rhythm changes in the key of A flat or D flat or something, I'm going to this technique to help me map it out. By the way, you could also do this technique with voicings, right? We mapped out 7 notes. You can create voicings with those 7 notes when you pre-map it out. I encourage you to map things out like this. And you can just choose, you're basically splashing around here, or I'm basically splashing around in all those scales we chose with voicings. Just playing different intervals. I'm really just experimenting here. You're going to find some stuff that you like. So it can be done harmonically as well. Marble, yeah, it is annoying. It's terrible. It's the worst, except for that it's the best. Cool. Any questions on that or anything else while you got me? Geo Cosmic Valentine says, I got work to do on getting a few more of the modal scales under my hands and that half whole. That's the thing, is if like you're trying to get a new sound in your playing, like a half whole or more altered stuff or any kind of mode that you want, any kind of color, like think about it as, I love to think about it as a painter, right? Like I want to work with more blues, you know? So I'm not blues the form, but like blue colors, right? As a painter, right? So I'm going to add some different shades of blue to my palette as I'm creating this thing, and I'm going to practice with blues. It's that kind of thing, you know. Oysen says, do you ever transcribe just licks from solos? Yeah, all the time. Language is super important, and you can figure out a lot of like what are my note choices over this section of a song by transcribing your favorite soloists. It's great work to do. Bethany says, can you link us to more what goes where? It's not horrible. There's really, I don't have any specific links here, Bethany, but as far as like chord scale choices, it's pretty simple. Even just like Jamie Abersol books have the most basic versions, but it's the easiest way to think about it actually is diatonically. Like, so, you know, if you look at our 2-5-1 in the key of C, our first choice should always be our most basic choice. And what is this? This is all a cadence in the key of C. So that's why at first we chose all the modes of C. That makes sense, right? Now I went to this half whole diminish because it's a way to add tension. That half whole diminished scale on a dominant chord is sort of like your level 1 of adding tension. And then you have the altered scale, the whole tone scale, which I gotta practice. Those are all different ways that you can add tension, mostly on dominant chords. Everything else, like minor chords and major chords and diminished and half diminished, they're kind of easy because it's like if it's a minor chord, it's either going to be a Dorian, a natural minor, or a melodic minor. Like that's really like if it's a tonic, it's probably a melodic minor or a natural minor, or well, a melodic minor is a natural minor. You get what I'm saying. If it's a 2 chord, it's a Dorian almost always. If it's a 6 chord, it's a natural minor almost always. You know what I mean? If it's a dominant chord, then you have some work to do. You have some decisions to make. It can either be a mixolydian, depending on the context. It could be, you know, maybe I'll do in the next live I'll do, Bethany, I'll do choosing the scales, like choosing dominants essentially, because that's where the most choices come in. We could talk about how to do that because it's take a while to explain, but yeah. Quincy says, do you transcribe comping? I have transcribed comping. Giovanni says, Adam, thank you for that practice. What kind of shapes it could be made or patterns with 7th chords, arpeggios in this case? Thank you, Giovanni. So it's really like up to you, Giovanni, to splash around. So you could start with just, you know, stacks of thirds. That's where everybody starts. Down, up. I'm literally just moving stacks of thirds around in the C major, and then the Dorian. And then your D mixolydian. In fact, this is a really good way to scale run. It's just like sorry. D mixolydian, Lydian. Not all going to sound good. Practicing those stacks of thirds and running them, you could do that, and then you could just pick any shape. Experiment with different shapes. Those work great. Marco says, do you always keep the third and seventh on the left hand when you do? No, not always. In fact, here I was just doing a C major triad. The root, Marcos, is really all you need, because if you're... like, you can hear the tonality just from the scale. Jay says, is there a good bar or two where everyone's favorite Barry Harris scale fits in? Jay, that's a whole other thing. The scale of chords, that's a harmonic device. And that works on this, but it's a whole different thing. Elias, you try any Miles Davis album. Especially On Green Dolphin Street, whatever. I forget what record is On Green Dolphin Street on. What album is that on? Does anybody know? Spacing. Nathan says, off topic entirely. First date tonight, what ballad should I play for? Nathan, please don't play on the first date. Just, everybody stop. It's the first date, Nathan. That playing a ballad for your date, that's third, fifth date. Save it. Leave a little mystery. Good gravy. Nathan. Save it. Save it. But round midnight, that's your answer. Eric says, is there any video you would recommend for how to adjust if you can't reach tens in the left hand? I'm not sure, Eric. I'm not sure. I don't have any, but I'm sure someone does. Oh, thank you, David. Carlos suggests Misty. That's a good one, too. Cool. Yeah, David, this will be available later. It'll be up on this YouTube channel indefinitely. MIDI sticker says, best scales to play over the half diminished chords, besides the usual Locrian. Well, the usual Locrian is my go-to. That's the one. The Locrian sharp 2, I don't know about sharp 7, but sharp 2 is, yeah, you got it. Sharp 2 is a good one as well. But I like a Locrian. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, some bebop musicians, instead of calling this D minor 7 flat 5, would call this F minor over D. So thinking about it as as F minor 7 almost. Like F minor, like an F minor sound. Like 4-5-1 instead of 2-5-1, but just the D is in the bass. So I love that. So like if you play a 2-5-1 to E flat, you kind of do the same thing to C minor. That's not the same thing. That was closer. But you know what I mean? It's like they almost work. Bart says, are you good at playing classical? No. Lance says, you mentioned that the half-whole diminished scale is a combo of 4 notes from 2 different scales. This is a mind-blowing way to think about it, Lance, but it's really fun. So if you have your G half-whole diminished, right? If you look at these notes, G, A flat, B, C sharp, D, E, F, and G. If we play it descending, notice this. 4 notes of G7, 4 notes of D flat 7, the tritone sub, going to C. So it's like descending G7, and then when you get to that D, descending D flat 7. So there's like a tritone sub baked in. And by the way, because it's diminished scale and everything is in minor thirds, you could start on E, 4 notes of E7, 4 notes of B flat 7. Start on B flat 7. Right? It's like 4 dominant scales descending all in one. Elias says, could you teach us how to solo with quintal harmony? I don't really know what that is. Is that like... I don't really know what quintal harmony is. Giovanni says, Adam, what's so usual is making patterns, skipping intervals besides... intervals inside altered diminished scales for these cases. Altered and diminished scales for these cases? That's a lot there. So for the altered... the go-to pattern inside of it, remember I said like the C7 altered is actually like a D flat melodic minor ascending? Play the up to the 9 starting on D flat of a D flat melodic minor. That's the go-to. You hear this everywhere. That's the one for that. And then with the diminished, there's a ton of patterns and triads, and there's all kinds of things. I actually have a older YouTube video from maybe a year and a half ago, all on the diminished scale that you should check out. It's on this channel. Just search for diminished scale; it'll come up. I believe there's like a picture of Michael Brecker and Chick Corea. Elias says, like what Alan Holdsworth does with his. I don't know a lot of that music, Elias. I'm not a Holdsworth expert, and I don't really know much about that. Eric says, who is your favorite jazz artist that is not a jazz artist? I can't answer that, Eric. That's too much. There's too many. Colleen says, how does anyone turn off a song in Spotify? I can never make it end and go away. Should be a play and a pause button, Colleen, no? Tom says, do you have a favorite bebop line over a certain progression? Not really, but I have some of the first bebop. I'll tell you a bebop line that really helped things click for me. It's this one. I don't even know whose bebop line that is, but a teacher showed me this at a piano once. So 2-5-1 in F. Colleen, I think pause stops it, but you could also quit out of Spotify as well. Pause should pause the song, and then you can quit Spotify, I believe. Marble Frog Slap says, as a classical pianist, I'm trying to learn this new language. The amount of harmony to learn and get under your hands is really overwhelming. Is there a tip to drop the inhibitions and start to relearn? You have to immerse yourself, Marble Frog Slap. Listening is the most direct path, and you have to treat it as part of your practice routine. Treat it like a job. You need to listen for like an hour a day, minimum. If you're learning a new language, you have to immerse yourself in that new language. So listen, and then also find the culture. Marble Frog Slap, depending on where you live, there's probably some kind of jazz culture happening. It's all over the world. Jazz musicians everywhere. And so I would recommend going to hang out with them. Go to the jazz shows. Go to the jam sessions. Even if you're not playing, just go hang out and meet people and talk to them about this thing that you're into. Like if I were to start, I said I'm not a great classical pianist, which I'm not, but if I were to really get into it, and I've gone through phases where I've like been very wanting to get better at it, and I grow a little bit. I'm still not great, but like I want to grow a little bit. I will spend a lot of time with classical musician friends that I have already and meet some new people and go to the symphony quite a bit and go hear chamber music quite a bit and just spend some time in that world. Like when I wanted to I was for a while obsessed with the blues, and luckily I live in St. Louis and there's a lot of great blues musicians here. And so I would just go down to the blues clubs all the time and hang out and meet with them and not even really play, just chill, you know, listen to a lot of music. Jake, any tips for players with smaller hands that struggle reaching ninths? It's a do it thing, Jake. You got to stretch it if it's going to stretch. We're all going to be limited a little bit, but you know, you don't have to have huge hands to be able to get your stretch going. Like my left hand stretch is better than my right hand stretch, and I have the same size hands, obviously, but it's only better because I play more tenths in my left hand. It's literally just a doing it situation, you know? No, Chopin is not jazz. Samuel says, I've been trying to learn drop 2. Is there an easy way to do this? No, there's no easy way to do anything. But I can give you some tips here. Just take so drop 2 starts with 4-way close. So make sure you have your 4-way close together in your right hand. 4-way close is like a D minor 7 here. All the inversions that are as close together as possible. D, F, A, and C, right? Got 4 inversions. And then practice that 4-way close. Make sure you have that in your right hand. And then take the second note from the top and drop that down. And then practice those in all inversions. And then you could also practice your 6th diminished scale in drop 2. Probably the best way to practice drop 2 because it's very functional. But again, start with your 4-way close. 4-way close is important. Everything, 4 notes all together, drop 2. Garrett says, how do I not sound like a middle schooler on rhythm changes? I don't know, Garrett. Especially comping rhythm changes. Oh, compings, that's great. So speaking of 4-way close, and actually, if you add, so 4-way close here, here's our B flat, right? I'm going to take my top note here. I'm going to just put it in my left hand. So now we've got this locked hands thing. So Garrett, here's your key. I'm going to put this metronome on 2 and 4. Check it out. 1, 2, here's the rhythm changes. 1, 2, 3. You know? That's all you got to do. These are the red garland rhythms. And of 4, and of 2. I got my locked hands. And then I can start to vary that. Yeah, just that red garland thing, and of 4, and of 2. Take some very simple locked hand voicings. Those are literally just like 6 diminished voicings, right? That's it. Okay. Tom says, I noticed many jazz players end their solos with a descending blues scale lick. Do you have any other ways of how you would end solos? You can do whatever you want, Tom. The blues scale thing, and the blues scale is not actually a thing, by the way. It's just the blues language is a thing. It is the exclamation point. It is the punctuation, not on just the end of solos, but on the end of phrases. Like people like Oscar Peterson will end every chorus of the blues with some kind of blues scale thing because it's so powerful. Because you're here in major. You know, you're all that B flat major on that rhythm changes and going down that exclamation point of that language is part of that language. And the blues is part of jazz, it's part of Black American music. And I encourage everybody to get steeped in the blues if you want to learn about jazz or R&B or anything else, because you can't have it without it. It's part of us here on Earth. It's part of Earth, the blues. The blues is part of the planet, as far as I'm concerned. Garrett, welcome to high school. Thank you, Bod the Grinch. Appreciate that. Okay, I got to go. I will see you all in a little bit. I'll be live on Monday on Open Studio Pro. Join me over there. I'll be live at 1 p.m. doing some more scale running. Cheers, folks. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.